animals of all shapes and sizes preen and groom themselves to keep their fur, feathers, or shells properly maintained. But once a year, on this special day in June, the entire animal kingdom must prepare to look their absolute best to celebrate this anniversary.
Ooh, happy anniversary, Joseph.
I believe in miracles.
Joseph Jaffe. Why does that name sound so suspiciously familiar? Maybe because your secret screen name is Not Famous for You. What do you mean by not famous for you, Joseph? Chris Hansen here of Hansen vs. Predators. To catch a predator and have a seat with Chris Hansen. Now, Joseph Jaffe, I'm going to need you to have a seat right over there. I see some suspicious activity. Something about a television show, doing interviews, 200 guests, something like that. But, Joseph, you are not famous. And the people on your show, well, they're not infamous like my shows. But remember, Jaffe is not famous. So let's keep it that way. I'll be watching and listening. Behave.
Woody-hoo!
Woody-hoo! Out here in the stream, as in the streaming era, I fight for my dreams. I get my heart into my living.
You encourage drinking or marijuana use on the show?
I don't need a fight, cause Evelyn's right. Or you could sponsor an emu. I'm Batman.
That's your tweetable moment, folks. That's your tweetable moment. If Mark Zuckerberg makes a metaverse, is that Web3? No, it's Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse.
He's like us. He's flawed.
Just a little segue.
That's some dope shit, dude. That's really, really nice.
Woody-hoo!
Woody-hoo! Yes, my friends, it is a Friday. As you know, in not famous land, Friday is Fry-yay. Not because it's the end of the week, but because it's an episode with Bernie Gorgeous Borges. That's how I remember it. And he is gorgeous in his Hawaiian shirt in the green room right now. We're going with a little bit more of a laid-back song to kick us off, but that doesn't mean that we're going to approach life in a laid-back sort of way unless we choose to lay back and relax. Well, we're going to be talking about fulfillment, midlife fulfilled. We're going to be talking about midlife crisis as well. Is it really a midlife crisis when every day is a crisis? Welcome to Web3, my friends. Welcome to, I don't even know what it is, but it ends with the word shin. Depression, repression, recession, the mother's profession, I don't know, whatever. Is that from Fiddle on the Roof? I'm not really sure. But Todd Smith is here and he said, first time seeing you live on YouTube. Well, we know that we're live at 1:04 p.m. because we're talking to each other right now. Hey, Todd, would you like to get some Jaffe coin? You can get it right now because for the next hour, actually cheating a little bit because this is the same QR code I used when I was on Bernie's show. And so it's going to be, not only will it be live for a long time, but you don't need today Jaffe coin to get Jaffe coin. So anyone can actually take advantage and get a little bit of coin because you know what? We can all spread a little bit of cheer, get a little bit more coin and pay it forward. Why not? Why not? You know, I got to tell you, it's been, Bernie said to me, in the background, in the green room, he said, you're looking a little grizzled, my friend. He didn't use the word grizzled or my friend. That's just me paraphrasing. He said, you look tired. And I'm like, me tired? No, I'm not tired at all. Maybe I'm a little tired. Maybe my body says I'm tired, but actually my mind is completely energized because, you know, I've been hustling. I've been selling like I've never sold before, getting this beautiful beast of a project off the ground, getting energy to take off. And, I really, really do believe that when you want to get something that is worthwhile off the ground, when you want to do anything that requires a lot of work, you've got to be able to recognize that the hardest work comes at the beginning. The hardest work does come when you're trying to push that rock, roll that boulder uphill. But once you get to the top and it starts to go downhill and gather momentum and gather excitement and engagement, and more people are on board, then you just sit back, relax, and go into autopilot. By the way, Todd says, yes, great meeting you at the Rally Creator Coin Conference. My coin is Seller's 3CR8. I'm a huge supporter of the Jaffe coin, and I'm a supporter of yours as well. A little bit of coin to coin love. And we're going to have to get you on the show. In fact, I think I spoke to you about that as well. So Todd, now you get to see what that looks like. Well, going back to Alpha Collective for a moment, I've been thinking of ways to position this, to merchandise this, to make this and demonstrate that ultimately this is all about value. And so really where I've settled on is the fact for under $50 a week, you can get in excess of $1 million worth of Alpha Talks by 52 Alpha Talk speakers across 52 weeks. That's a pretty good deal, I think. And the beauty of it, especially if you're new to this whole NFT as a key that unlocks this door, this community, is that you can sell it at any given point in time. So in addition to the way that I've positioned it on the front end, I also want to keep on adding value. And so every new member will get a 5-minute cameo on the show. So you'll get 5 minutes of content, 5 minutes of video, whether it's a Q&A, whether it's just being a little mini guest, doing a vignette, talking about something that's on your mind, that's the content strategy, or just chilling or promoting or punting you, your company, your projects. Why not? If you buy into me, then I will pour into you. My goal is to deliver 100x in value and utility. And while I won't make this a contractual obligation, because that would be pretty hard, I am going to keep score. I am going to make sure that people understand. And right off the bat, $1 million worth of speaker fees that you get for free by being a part of this for $2,500, which is the price of entry. You can already see what that utility and what that multiple of value looks like. So if you want to know more about Alpha Collective, just go to alphacollective.xyz. In fact, if you go to alphacollective.xyz, you can actually not only buy a pass with fiat, with credit card, but you can actually buy it with crypto and probably save about an ETH in the process. So I won't get too technical, but let me just say right now, today, if you buy in crypto, it's $1,800 as opposed to $2,500. So that is all about me. Let me just share with you some of our speakers we announced this week: Shira Lazar, Brian Fanzo, and Todd Kaplan, the CMO of Pepsi. So we really are going to make sure that these speakers represent young, old, Web3, normie, big brands, small startups, practitioners, builders, thought leaders, etc., etc. It is going to be exciting, and I hope that you can be a part of this ride with me. But right now, I want you not to go on a ride. I want you to go on a journey as I share with you my seated soliloquy. And the seated soliloquy today is called Get Off My Lawn. Why am I talking about lawns and getting off lawns? Because we're talking about growing old. We're talking about getting cranky, getting irate, getting stubborn, set in our ways, being an old fart in a perfume factory. Get off my lawn. I don't want to learn about new things. I don't want to learn about Web3. I don't want to learn about podcasting. Just give me my New York Times, my Wall Street Journal, and let me just embrace the old ways, the status quo. Well, you know what? That's all a crock of shit at the end of the day, because I'm seeing incredible growth. I'm seeing the mature, the silver-haired executives leaning in to innovation, into change, into disruption, into Web3, however you want to call it. Age is just a number. Age is relative. And if you want to be cranky and crabby and snarky and cynical, well, guess what? That is not a function of age, my friends. That is all about your mindset. It's about your life view, your world view, how you see the world, and how young you feel. At the end of the day, I might look tired, but I don't feel tired. I don't feel old. I feel young. I feel like I haven't yet stepped into my prime. Hell, it took a global pandemic for me just to realize that my calling in life was not to be a consultant, charged by the hour, be a corporate person. I haven't worked for a corporation since 2002. It wasn't even necessarily to be an entrepreneur. It was to be a talk show host. It was to learn how to be an active listener. It was to be able to bring on people like Bernie onto my show and have meaningful conversations with meaningful people. That, my friends, is what has given me life, not just the ticker part of it, but given me a new lease on life, to love what I do, to enjoy what I do. And right now, enjoying what I do is to introduce Mr. Bernie Gorgeous Borges. Bernie is a vice president. He is the vice president of global content marketing at IQOR. I'm seeing so many different IQOR, a leading BPO. I've got to ask him what a BPO is. I'm just learning so much about him right now. He's the co-founder and advisory board member at Vengreso. Bernie, I'm just like totally, I'm totally acting like an old fart right now. The digital sales transformation company. Bernie's a voiceover professional, unlike me, who's clearly an amateur, and the host of the Midlife Fulfilled podcast. His career spans 3 decades in B2B marketing roles and sales roles in tech. He founded and grew the digital marketing agency Find and Convert, which after 15 years merged into Vengreso in 2017. Now I'm going to go with Vengreso, whatever. Bernie speaks at marketing industry events and is the author of Marketing 2.0, one of the earliest books on social media marketing strategy. He invented Marketing 2.0, damn it. He has been recognized by industry peers, including me, and including top 50 content marketing influencers. I was 51st. Marketing Insider's 60 best marketing speakers. I was 61st. 50 social media marketing influencers. You guessed that I was 51st. And Analytica's top 100 AI influencers. I was in the IA list. Bernie taught the content marketing module in the University of South Florida digital marketing certificate program. Just having a little bit of fun with him because, Bernie, I'm sick and tired of you, damn it. This is hour 4 of our love affair. Welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness, what a start. What a start. That was hilarious.
Potato, Vengreso, you tell me.
Well, you got it. It's Vengreso. That's the right one. Yep. And then
I kind of knew it was Vengreso after the 17th attempt.
And then the company I'm with now is iCore. So that one's a little easier. And
IQR.
BPO. Almost like iCore code, right? But it's iCore.
Yeah.
And then
like
BPO. BPO is business process outsourcing, which is just a fancy acronym for the companies that are in the BPO industry, by and large, operate call centers. So anytime you call in for support, you're talking to an agent. Good chance you're talking to someone who's employed by a BPO like iCore.
Now, I've always wondered why, if my call is so important to them, it's going to take them an hour and 45 minutes to answer it. Is there maybe if I wasn't important to them, they would take 4 hours and 45 minutes. Maybe that would be a good little IVR script update, which is, you are important to us. And so therefore, instead of taking 7 hours, we're just going to take an hour 45. What's going on with IVR? Why can we not figure it out?
Well, that's why one of the most managed or tracked metric in the call center business is AHT, average handle time. So by and large, most companies are looking to reduce their average handle times so that call wait times are not an hour and 45 minutes, but more like 45 seconds, right? So it varies. Depends on the brand you're calling. It depends on the demand. There's all kinds of variables that go
Now,
into it all the time.
now AHT, that is that measuring the time you waited before you even started talking, or it's just the amount of time in the actual call?
In the actual call, how long did it take to handle that call?
Now, as we know, and I'm sure you've seen many presentations on it as well, where you see the real leaders in the space. The like the USAA or Zappos. They're swimming against the current. They're cutting against the grain. They're actually saying there is no limit. We're not trying to incentivize shorter calls. We're not trying to get people off the phone. Will take as long as they want us to actually engage with them. And it's not surprising that that metric, actually, the longer that people spend with quality time, that there is a correlation or a relationship with like a higher net promoter score, for example.
Exactly, exactly. You have to keep in mind, Joseph, that about half, roughly, I think somewhere around 55% of companies actually outsource their customer service, and then the balance handle it in house. And it's very costly for companies to handle it in house. Very costly, which is why there's a big market for outsourcing. So a Zappos, for example, probably handles it in house, and they're going to throw all the resources they want to throw at it because they want to. It's part of who they are as a company, right? So
Yeah,
they handle it in house. They can do it any way they want.
100%. And I was just, I had one of my, get off my lawn moments. Actually, yesterday in a presentation that I gave to a bunch of marketers, because I was basically saying as well that I'm sick and tired of people making excuses, right? We don't have the resources. It's too costly. It's too, time consuming. I mean, I was even referring, it's like Freudian, but referencing Alpha Talk speakers for Alpha Collective. I was saying I'm going for 52, but 26 of them will be male, or those who identify as male, and 26 will be female, or those who identify as female. I'm sick and tired of people saying there aren't enough women in tech and Web 2 and social media, and Web 3. There are. You just have to look hard enough, and you have to
Yeah.
actually take the time. It's the same thing. Like, I cannot have a company complain to me about the fact that it's costly to actually engage with a human being, and instead, what are we doing? We're being forced and funneled into chatbots, and it's infuriating, and it's dumb marketing.
Well, the thing you have to remember, Joseph, is that one of the hardest jobs on the planet is to be a customer service agent. Because think about it. You don't get phone calls with people saying, I love your brand. You're awesome. You're making my day. No, you get phone calls from people who are complaining. They have a problem to solve. And so consequently, the attrition in that role, whether it's a company that handles it in-house or it's outsourced, it's among the highest attrition rates across all industries because it's just a very hard job. So the whole digital customer service play is big. The brands want you to go digital. They want to minimize those phone
I
calls.
know. Well, I met a guy who I've written about in my books before. Maybe you've even met him too. His name's Len Hauser. And I met him actually in Austin, Texas at a South by Southwest. And he said something to me that's always stuck with me. And I'll just share it again with you and with people that are watching. He said there are two types of people in the world. There are numerator people and denominator people. And like I got it like immediately when he said that. Well, but I'll explain it. The numerator people are always thinking about the upside and thinking about the possibilities, the limitless upside. But the denominator people are thinking of how to limit the downside, and so those are typically the cost cutters as well. And I think that's the problem. The problem is that we're always thinking, like a denominator as opposed to a numerator person. And so, like I say, when it comes to like customer service as well, which is like, it's so interesting that you say like the highest attrition. Well, guess what? We can perhaps pay them more. And I was also thinking that the reason why people are calling you to say that you suck is probably because you suck. So like if we can, if we can just be able to figure out, I mean, it's almost like I want a customer service person to say, like, you're totally right, we do suck. But, like, don't take it personally. They're not calling to tell you you suck.
Right.
It's your company.
Right.
I don't know. I've just, like, so frustrating. But
Yeah,
enough about sucky people. Let's talk about Bernie. Let's talk about some fun facts. Let's find out. And I saw even in your bio doc that you provided a whole bunch of fun facts normally to people that are interviewing you. So you are such a pro, my friend. But none of those fun facts are the fun facts that we're going to be talking about today. Did you know that? You gave me original fun facts.
I can't wait.
Well, we start off with the fact that your biggest professional regret is not pursuing an acting career. But here on Joseph Jaffe's Not Famous, we make dreams come true. So there you are.
I love it.
Give me your acceptance speech.
I love it. Well, Academy, I'm just so thrilled.
I'm gonna let you finish. But Lubna Zaru is the best. No, I'm kidding. I just saw Lubna is watching right now. So hello, Lubna. A little bit of a Kanye there. But no, seriously, back to you. Give me your acceptance speech.
Well, I was so moved by the role that you're recognizing me for. When I got the script, I read through it. I couldn't put it down, and I just told my agent, I have to do this. I have to do this, and now here I am, and I just can't thank you enough. That's it. Are you kicking me off the stage, or are you going to slap me?
Carry on. Carry on with your speech.
Oh, okay. Well, so when I got the script and I was reading through it, I said, I was born to play this character. I mean, this script was written for me. So I went to my agent and said, get me this part. And he fought and he got it for me. And here I am.
Did you not hear me playing you off? I was playing you off. I was attempting to play you off. But it didn't work. Anyway, listen, it was a great speech. And in your famousness and in your popularity, we found out something else about you, Bernie, which is that you know famous people. You went on a double date with Ted Danson and his wife in 1980. Now, we don't actually have a clip from that dinner, but at the same event that you won that beautiful statue, here you are posing with your famous friend as well. So tell us about Ted and Mary. I'm feeling like a little bit of a Larry David moment here.
Yeah, so it was a second date for a young lady that I was dating at the time, many decades ago. And so she said, "Well, let's go to Central Park and let's have a picnic." This is back in New York. I said, "Great, great." So she said, "Do you mind if we do a double date with my sister and her husband?" "Yeah, fine, no problem." So I show up for the date, Central Park, with her and her sister and her husband. She introduces me, and he looks familiar to me. Now, mind you, the timing of this is 1980. He was still in New York City. He had not gone to Hollywood yet. So this is pre Ted Danson, the famous actor. At the time, what he was known for was he was the Aramis man, which Aramis is it's a cologne. So he was the model that was the face of the Aramis man. And in the conversation, and by the way, he was very witty, very funny, very nice guy. I don't remember specifics of the conversation because it was a long time ago, but I remember he was a nice guy. But he was talking about the fact that he was just getting ready to go to Hollywood, actually to relocate out to Hollywood to just kind of, pursue opportunities. And then, of course, the rest is history, right?
Wow. I'm just remembering Aramis. I think I used to wear Aramis. But I guess it's not around anymore, is it?
I don't think so. But yeah, we're dating ourselves a little bit. But yeah, that was.
Well, I mean, we are talking about, midlife. So,
Yeah.
Aramis was built to suck. I don't know. I'm just thinking. So here's something else. Speaking of your illustrious acting career, You used to be a surgeon on TV. Now we tried. We looked long and hard to try and get a clip of this. Unfortunately, we weren't able to. Oh, hang on a second. My producer's saying we were able to. So let's sit back, relax, and remember, we're not laughing with you. We're laughing at you.
In every hospital, in every city of this great country, a battle rages on. The battle between a CEO who needs to maintain profit and a physician whose only concern is patient outcome.
Paul, I've got to be in OR in 5 minutes, so what's on your mind?
Thanks for coming. I know you're really busy, but I just wanted to talk to you about, we've got some profitability issues. It has to do with the amount of procedures that are taking place here, and a vast majority of those happen to be yours.
Da, da, da. What happened next? You'll have to tune in next week for Bernie Borges, unprofitable surgeon.
Actually, that I basically told him to go pound sand, and that's what surgeons do when that conversation happens. The surgeons are going to use the supplies they want to use for their patients, period, end of story. And the hospital admins want them to use lower cost supplies. And therein lies a big part of the problem in healthcare.
And therein lies the fact that I have Gore-Tex sitting in my heart right now. So, the same product that is in your weatherproof Patagonia windbreaker or your tent is in Joseph Jaffe Is Not Famous. What else do we know about you? There's so much, Bernie, that I would be loathed to move on to the more serious stuff that people actually tune in for. Let's talk about the fact that you launched a digital TV show. I guess this is getting a little bit more into the story behind the story. But this is interesting to me. You launched a digital TV show in 2013. The production costs killed you, and you pivoted to audio-only podcast. So unfortunately, we don't have a clip of that. Oh, wait a second. My producer says we do. Let's watch a little bit of this. And this is not half bad, to be honest.
Welcome to episode number 1 of the Social Business Engine digital TV show. I'm your host, Bernie Borges, and I am very excited to launch the Social Business Engine, where I'll bring you interviews with professionals from brands around the world who are willing to share their social business journey with you. A social business is one who embraces...
So wait, that was episode 1. How many episodes did you do?
I think we only did like 3, 4, 5, something like that. And then just, like I said, that was in studio. There was nothing digital about that. That was physically in studio.
Can you imagine though? I mean, just think about and here you are now, and you've got this phenomenal podcast. Let's take a step back and let's reflect on it right now. The whole thing is, if you could do it all over again, would you have, what would you have done? What about starting video now? Like I've chosen to do 2 years ago. I would just love to get your thoughts, because, there's so many interesting places we can take this right now. People saying it's too late for me to change my career. It's too late for me to start a podcast. It's too late for me. Is it too late, Bernie? Like, tell us a little bit about kind of where you've come from to where you are today.
Yeah. Short answer is no. It's never too late. It's really all about just following your passion, being true to yourself, in case that sounds familiar to you. And then just, taking some action. I'm a big believer, Joseph, in taking action in small increments instead of trying to boil the ocean. All right, so let me put a little plan in place, and then what can I do today and tomorrow and the day after? And then just chip away at it little by little. The challenge today, I actually prefer video over audio only. You can see, this microphone here, which at this point in my life, it's an appendage. But as much as I love podcasting, and I truly, truly do love podcasting, I would prefer to be on set, like, what you showed, the inaugural episode of Social Business Engine back in 2013, just because I prefer to actually communicate that way. I love what you're doing. But the level of effort for me at this point, I'm not ready to take that on. But I'm not saying that I never will. I am not saying that. I'm saying that I'm not ready to do that right now because it is a level of effort. And hey, you can speak to that, right? I mean, you don't show up 10 minutes in advance. I know how much preparation goes into this. In fact, I only have an idea of how much preparation goes into it. You know way more than I do. So yes, anybody can do it who's willing to, as long as you know what to do and then you've got the ability to put that level of effort in, because it takes a big commitment.
Todd said it's never too late. Totally agree. Taking action in small increments, and I'm sure many people have heard the saying, which is how do you eat an entire elephant? Right? What's the answer?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. And by the way, who's eating an elephant? I mean, why not? I've always been more of a blue whale a man myself. But yeah, I mean, look, it's an interesting thought, this idea of small increments, because there's a corollary of it, or which isn't an equal and opposite one, which is this idea of incrementalism. So can you help me reconcile the idea of, instead of tweaking and making small changes that are not enough because of a lack of risk taking, or so this idea of incrementalism versus the concept of small increments, because they are two very different things.
Yeah, I don't know that I can give you that distinction. But for me, and by the way, I just want to give a shout out to Todd. Todd, totally with you, man. It's never too late.
You just subscribed to Midlife Fulfilled, by the way.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Todd. Give me your feedback. Love to get your feedback. For me, it goes way back to my college years. And I put myself through college and I did it at night. So instead of tackling college 4 years traditionally, right? 2 semesters, you're done by May or June, take the summer off, go back the following semester. You do that for 4 years. I did it at night, Joseph, and I went 12 months a year, and I went to a university that gave me the opportunity to actually go even during the summer. So there were no days off other than Saturdays and Sundays. So the end of one semester, Monday was the beginning of a new semester, 12 months a year. So I did my college education in those small increments. And then fast forward decades into my current life, I give myself a quota where I need to spend at least 1 hour per day right now on the Midlife Fulfill podcast. On some days, I just make it. Some days it's an hour and a half. It's rarely 3 or 4 because I don't have that kind of time. I do work at iCore, which is a company and a job that I enjoy. So this is a side passion project for me. And then I spend some time on the weekends as well. But here's the thing, Joseph, it adds up. It cumulatively adds up. And as long as you can, celebrate the progress you're making along the way, like feel good about it, like give yourself credit for that because it's warranted. Instead of having that numerator mindset of like, oh, I could be doing so much more. And once in a while, that thought does come into my head, but I quickly remind myself of, my current circumstance in life. This is a passion project of mine. So it's an hour a day and then a little more on the weekends. And I continue to make progress. And as long as I'm making progress, I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
You said so many wonderful things there. And I think I think I can reconcile the riddle, which is the small increments, right? As opposed to incrementalism, there are small increments of something bigger. So what you've really done is, instead of the tweak, what you've done is you've taken something big and hairy and audacious and lofty and scary, and you've cut it up into small increments. It's the same as Stephen King's approach to writing. He sits down and writes 500 words a day. I had James Rollins on my show. He writes 1,500 words a day. So the ability to break a big task up into smaller tasks is essentially what you're saying. There's a bigger vision, there's a bigger goal, there's a bigger plan, and that's how you get there, as opposed to saying, like, it's like losing weight, right? It's like saying, I can't do that, not at my stage in my life. And that gets into this whole idea of, of fulfillment.
That's exactly right. And again, celebrating the progress that you're making, feeling good about that. I mean, you want to look at the plan you've created for yourself. So you're not doing it randomly, and then just stay on that plan. So as you put that plan together, just say, okay, I'm going to implement this plan an hour a day. And as long as you stay true to that, and even if some days it's less than an hour, then maybe on another day it's a little more than an hour, but on average an hour a day in my scenario, then just celebrate that because you're staying true to the plan and you're making progress.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about age, right? But I want to go beyond this thought of age is relative, et cetera, et cetera. I want you to set it up in terms of this idea of fulfillment. You know me, I talk about BPAP, before pandemic and after pandemic, but what do you have a different take on that?
Yeah. So on my podcast, the Midlife Fulfilled podcast, I talk about BF to AF, as you know, Joseph, before fulfillment to after fulfillment. Now, on the very first episode, what I cover on the first episode is I put a definition to midlife. And I did considerable research and preparation for that episode. So anybody that's watching here today, if you want to check out the podcast, start with episode 1, because that's really the foundation. I'll give you a little, sneak preview of what I discussed there. And that is that there's data out there that shows that we humans start to lose what's called happiness after age 18, or starts to decline after age 18. The study that references this or describes this is the U happiness curve. Again, it's the letter U. So after age 18, we begin to decline in happiness, and then we bottom out, meaning we reach our least happiest state or state of happiness in our mid 40s. And then we begin to climb up the other side of the U curve by gaining more happiness. Now, I make a distinction between happiness and fulfillment because we have many dimensions to our life, many dimensions, and we can be fulfilled in an area of life and then unhappy in another area of life. So you can be both fulfilled and unhappy in different dimensions of life. Simple example is one might be an awesome talk show host and consequently very fulfilled because they're an awesome talk show host, Joseph, right? There you go. But, let's say you're not happy with your state of physical fitness and, you're really trying to get back in shape or something. And so you're not fulfilled in that area of your life. I'm not saying that's the case for you, Joseph. I'm just using that as a hypothetical, right?
I'm trying.
But I mean, it's just one of many examples. And then the beginning part of your question was about age. I love this topic because, first of all, I want you to know that 1 month from today, today's June 17th, July 17th, is my 65th birthday. And Joseph, when I was in my 50s, I really wouldn't even admit that I was in my 50s. And now in my 60s, and I am leaning into it, totally leaning into it. There you go.
You'd be like, oh, the noise.
Right.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn.
You're like, what?
And the reason I'm leaning into it is because I have discovered through my research that I'm still very much in midlife. But here's the thing. Most people think midlife is the midpoint in their life. Midpoint in their life. No. Midlife is not about an age. Midlife is driven more by circumstances in your life. For many of us, that starts in our 30s. So what I'm saying, Joseph, is that for many of us, we're starting our midlife seasons in our 30s. Notice, by the way, how I called it midlife seasons, because we spend most of our life in midlife seasons, because we only have 3 seasons in life, or 3 phases in life. Youth, generally up to about age 30. Midlife, starting somewhere in our 30s-ish, depends, it's different for everybody. And then end of life. And end of life is just that period where health begins to decline and eventually we pass. And that's not morbid, that's just a fact. Okay. So we spend most of our life in midlife seasons. My first midlife season was in my early 30s when I got married, because I had a totally different life before I got married. And then when I got married, and which was great, by the way, and I'm still married to the same woman almost 35 years now. But, those first couple of years, I had to make an adjustment. And looking back, I realize now that it was really one of my first midlife seasons that I had to make this adjustment to being married and a new responsibility. And eventually a couple of kids came along, etc. Right. So it's less about age, even though it is a factor. Like, you're not going to be in midlife at the age of 21. Right. But somewhere around 28 to 35, good chance you're going to hit a midlife season, depending on the circumstances in your life. Let me pause there, Joseph, and get some reaction.
Look, look at you. The host turns the guest turns the tables on the host and says, "Let me pause there." By the way, I'm just going on a complete tangent. Have you noticed, just completely random tangent? Are you aware, like, when you're a guest versus a host, are you able to move between the two? For example, I'm acutely aware and sensitive not to talk too much when I'm a host. But when I'm a guest, as you found out the hard way, I don't shut up for a second. But let me pause there.
So I am aware, but I'm also aware to the extent of respecting my host, right? Which is why I paused and actually turned it back over to you, right? Sort of making that easy for you, like making it really obvious, like, hey, I'm pausing here. Now you're up, right? Because I don't want to just monologue for 30 minutes nonstop. And then, of course, you will eventually interject by interrupting me, but I don't want to be that guest where you have to interrupt for you to actually engage with me.
I actually don't interrupt a lot at all. This was one of the most liberating, the two biggest transitions for me at the beginning. And I tell my story a lot about my wife who walked in and she was like, ringing, what's that? Like when you're like, and she was saying, like, stop talking. You talk and talk and talk, and you don't let you talk over your guests, and you don't let them finish. And that was the first part of my journey to become an active listener. And there was some guests that go on for like 7 or 8 minutes. And I actually watched, I almost had an out of body moment the first time that I just sat back and I just said, I'm just not going to say a word until they're done. And it was amazing. And sometimes guests get very self-conscious. They're like, I better shut up now. But other times it's just like, it's a beautiful thing when they just tell their story.
Yeah. I also think it's a little different, at least for me. I can't speak for you. It's a little different for me when
Your show is shorter.
Well, that's not where I was going. When I'm guesting on someone else's show, and because I'm a podcast host myself, I'm in your shoes all the time. So it's very different. And also, likewise, when you guested on my podcast, there's that element of respect because you're a host yourself, right? So it's different when I'm on a show, whether I'm guesting or hosting with someone else who's a podcaster or a talk show host like you. Very different.
So I actually found this quote for you, which I think would have been relevant about 42 minutes ago when we did the Instagram live of the first part of the second part of the time that you guested when I became the host. But anyway, I love this quote. It says, no, that's not the quote at all. Back to you.
Okay. So now I'm like curious. What was the quote? What was the quote? What was it about?
I'm finding it now. I thought I uploaded it, but
okay. Anyway, so back to what I was saying earlier, on episode 1.
No, here's the quote. Midlife crisis begins sometime in your 40s when you look at your life and think, is this all? And it ends about 10 years later when you look at your life again and think, actually, this is pretty good. I thought you would like that. This is a bloke by the name of Donald Ritchie. What do you think about that, Bernie?
Yeah, no, I mean, generally I like it. I mean, what I'll say is that, and I talk about this on episode 1, where again, I did a lot of research that I unveil in episode 1. And I talk about a study that I found that in the US, 26% of Americans claimed that they had a midlife crisis. 26%. So basically, we're saying, 75, 74% of Americans are not saying they have a midlife crisis. And I think that's very encouraging. And oftentimes a midlife crisis can be very real, but it can also be imagined. So there you get into a lot of granularity, and I'm not here to dissect that. I'm not even here to criticize that either, because you can legitimately have a midlife crisis. But in some cases, it can also be very imagined. But to this quote here, Joseph, I do like this quote because we do reach a point, many of us in our midlife seasons, where we say exactly what this quote says, and that is like, hey, this is actually pretty good. This is part of why I'm leaning into my age. Like, I'm okay with that. I have nothing to hide, right? Whereas in my 50s, I didn't even want to mention it. Like, ugh. I did not like even want to say the word, any word that was whatever age I was in that whole decade of the 50s. And now I'm okay with it because I've come to this understanding that I'm very much in a midlife season, and I'm focused on the fulfillment that I can maximize. And by the way, here's the next point that I'll get to. On episode 3 of my podcast, the Midlife Fulfill podcast, I dedicated it to the 80/20 principle. So why did I do that, you say, Joseph? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I came across the fact
Why did
that
you do that?
I'm so glad you asked. The 80/20 principle is in play all around us in so many different aspects of life. And first of all, it is not meant to be literal. It is not meant to be exactly 80% and exactly 20%. The bottom line, though, is that about 80% of us are less than 100% fulfilled. And if we're 80% fulfilled, we're doing great. We're doing great. Because think about how many dimensions we have to our life, right? We have career, we have romance, we have other relationships, we have, parenting if we're kids. In my case, I have a two-year-old grandson, so now I'm a grandfather, right? We have community, we have philanthropy, we have mental health, we have physical health. I mean, the list goes on. All these different dimensions, of life. And so I can be so fulfilled in 2 or 3 or 4 of those, and then 1 or 2 of those over here, not fulfilled. So to be 80% fulfilled, I close each episode by saying that, like, hey, if you're 80% fulfilled, you're doing great.
Yeah, I wonder what I am in terms of what percentage I am, and I know it's not a literal
Right.
percentage as well, but I think there's another interesting thing with me personally, is that the things that used to make me anxious, the things that used to worry me, the things that used to get me down, don't anymore. And I think it comes back to that quote as well, which is realizing it's almost like a concept of wasted time, that, and I don't even know if it goes into regret, but it's like, why did I waste so much time worrying about the things that it turned out were not things at all? But then I flip that on its head again and I say, but I'm here right now. I even said to my mom today, I said, I'm alive. I'm relatively healthy, given my health issues from last year. Like, what about you? Like, what's to worry about? What's to worry about? And I feel this fulfillment. I mean, here we are, two maturing, well, I'm immature, but two maturing gentlemen that are creators that have this privilege of being able to bring other people onto our shows to get to know them, to let them tell their stories. What a gift.
It is. It is. And, you were, I was privileged to have you featured on the Midlife Fulfill podcast. You were episode 19. And so many people are sharing very personal stories on the podcast. You shared your story, a very personal story. And I mean, every single individual is sharing something that in most cases, I don't know until we actually have pressed record and we're having a conversation about it. And it's just really, really inspiring to me. And it validates what I had a hunch, which is I did a survey back in January of this year, and I got 267 responses. And That's what brought me to the 80-20 principle, because 77, almost 78% of the people who took the survey said that they were not totally fulfilled. 19% said that they were totally fulfilled, which is very impressive. Very impressive. But again, take 78% and 19%, that's pretty close to 80-20, right? So it sort of validated what I was thinking, because I went into it, Joseph, thinking, I'm not totally fulfilled. Why should I be special, unique, different? I don't think I'm the only one. So I did that survey, and that front ended, the podcast. In fact, it even led me to the name of the podcast of Midlife Fulfilled. All I knew at the time when I was doing that survey and that research was, I want to do something on midlife. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but that research is what got me there. It got me to the topic of midlife fulfilled. And the whole objective behind the podcast is just to raise awareness that we spend most of our lives in midlife. And if you're putting all this pressure on yourself to be fulfilled, some people will use the word happy. If you're putting all this pressure on yourself, back off. Back off. You don't need to put that much pressure on yourself, because it's really pretty close to impossible to be happy / fulfilled. I prefer to think of fulfilled because, again, there's different dimensions of happiness, but all these different areas of our life, it's just really hard to just nail it across every aspect of life. It's just, even that 19%, Joseph, I question.
So
how true are they?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you a question, but first I'm going to ask you the question. We're going to listen to Tom Morris, who I think might be approaching 50 years old. Tom has become a really, really good friend, and I think he probably is someone that would be squarely just beginning his midlife phase. He has an incredible zest for life. But here's my question, which is, what is you were there at the same conference as me, listening to Dan Pink about regrets. What's your biggest regret in life? Here's Tom Morris.
Hi, I'm Tom Morris. A few years ago, I was out in California giving a talk to a big commercial firm, and I was with them pretty much the entire weekend in a beautiful hotel. Throughout the 2 or 3 days I was with this group, I saw many times their founder walk into a room full of people, and everybody would light up. People would smile, yell his name across the room, and anybody who was within 10 feet of him would come up and hug him. I saw this over and over and over again. Finally, I walked up to him at one point during the weekend and said, "Hey, Paul, why is it that every time you walk into a room, everybody lights up and people actually hug you?" And he said, "Oh, it's just my business philosophy, Tom." I said, "What's your business philosophy?" He said, "Love and appreciation. If you give people love and appreciation, 99 times out of 100, they're going to give it back to you." Not long ago, I was reading William James, the great Harvard philosopher and psychologist from about 100 years ago. He had published a giant 2-volume Principle of Human Psychology tome. And he said, when I finished the principles, I came to realize I had neglected to say one thing. The deepest need in human nature is the need to feel appreciated. If we just operated on that understanding every day, I think we'd see things around us change pretty dramatically. Everybody needs to feel appreciated. Meet that need in somebody else's life, and yours will improve as well. Happy philosophy.
I appreciate you, Bernie, but I was disappointed in Tom's story because I thought the person that everyone was hugging was me, but apparently not. But
I enjoyed his story, and Joseph, I'll share with you one of the ways that I show appreciation on my podcast. I mean, we can show appreciation so many different ways, but the way that I show appreciation on the podcast is I intentionally and frequently use the name of my guest. So every episode, Joseph, you hear me refer to the guest by name over and over again throughout the conversation. Now, I don't limit this to podcasts. I do this. This is a human interaction thing for me. That is a subconscious way of communicating to that person that you appreciate them. Now, there's many other ways, obviously, that you can show appreciation, but that is one simple and subconscious way. Powerful.
Bernie. Bernie. No, seriously, Bernie. We got a question from Todd. He said, for someone in their midlife who wants to take steps towards moving towards a job they're passionate about and could be successful in, what advice would you give to eventually leave their day job?
Yeah, Todd, that's a great question. And, there isn't a simple answer, especially an answer that's a cookie cutter answer that would, apply to everybody. But certainly, I would start by understanding what your values are and what your passions are. What are your values? What do you value the most? And what do you really just enjoy doing? Right. And another way that I would frame that up is map out or describe, write down, or tell someone, whichever you prefer, or all the above, your thoughts and feelings about that. I talk about that also on, I think, episode 2 or 3. I don't remember. Thoughts and feelings. We all have thoughts and feelings. I mean, we're driven by our thoughts and feelings. So understand what your thoughts and feelings are about what you want to do in this new chapter in your career. And then once you understand that, then you can begin to sort of direct your energy on where you can find that. Then it's a matter of putting other strategies in place to go find that. And then at some point, depending on the relationships you have in your current scenario, have some really open and honest conversation. If you have a boss, talk to your boss. Sometimes having a conversation with your boss around you wanting to pursue some passion, who knows? I mean, maybe there's even an opportunity to do that in the current environment. And if not, then just know by getting in touch with those thoughts and feelings where you want to go, and then begin to put a plan around that, and get other people to help you. Turn to friends and loved ones, that can just offer some advice to you and ideas. The whole idea or the whole thing about ideation, right? There's no such thing as a bad idea. Just get people to give you input. And sometimes even a bad idea can trigger a thought, which turns into a good idea. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into, how you might approach it. Todd.
Well, thank you, Bernie, for that. I actually have a different answer. My answer is just do it. Resign and go do it. And don't look back with regret. Because as Dan Pink said, and I think Todd was there as well, he said, as you get older, the regrets we have are regrets of inaction, not
Right.
regrets of action. I
Right.
just gave a presentation yesterday that I called The Power of the Pivot, and then they wanted me to talk about get ready for Web 3, and I changed it to get ready for Web Me. And put yourself first. Choose you. Choose you. You'll figure everything else. But my mortgage and college and this and that and whatever, just you'll figure it out. If you have to, you'll downsize. You'll figure it out. But you will never get this time back again. You will never get it back again. So choose you. Choose life, and don't wait to be pushed. That's the thing. That's the thing I realized. Most people need to be let go or laid off or fired or a global pandemic to make the change. I would not have become a talk show host without a global pandemic. I would not have become an entrepreneur if I wasn't laid off. Those were gifts. The second one in a really awful way. But I actually think what Bernie said is fantastic too. Because maybe you can find a way to do both. Maybe you can find a way to reconcile within the environment. Who said it has to be one or the other? It's a great insight. Bernie, Todd adds, the pandemic really did that for me in Seller and moving into Web 3. And also shout out to my mom. Ma, you have to go back and watch this from the beginning once we're done, because Bernie's my new best friend now. I mean, it's like hour 17 of us together. Bernie, we're at the top of the hour. I want to hear about your biggest regret, because we know from Dan, right, that you have to look back in order to move forward, and that regrets are a good thing. What is your biggest regret?
Well, I'm a big believer, Joseph, in leveraging the power of failure. And my biggest regret is not pursuing an acting career. I probably would have failed. And that may sound pessimistic, but it's just, the odds are astronomical against most people who go into acting. Only a small percentage actually make a living out of it. Uh, but I'm sure that whatever failures and experiences that I would have had decades ago would have been just phenomenal for me. And I think it would have given me a level of confidence and taken me to where I am now earlier in my life. And where I am now is like you. I'm not a talk show host like you are, but I'm a podcast host. But I've only been doing it 9 years. What if I had started doing it 20 years ago in a different format? Because podcasts weren't what they are right now. So that's my biggest regret, just not having pursued acting as a full-time career, and then just learning from that and how it would have impacted my life.
Thank you, Bernie. But as evidenced by my performance today, I'm not a talk show host either. But I love the response, and it reminds me. I tweaked a saying, right? If I'd known then what I know now, I wouldn't have done it, right? So I changed it. I said, if I'd known then what I know now, I would have started this 1 year earlier. And I think you and I are very, very aligned. Last question for you, and as people know, I come into this without actually any questions whatsoever, because you're just having a conversation, and certainly we went in all these weird and wonderful directions and tangents. But this one is almost, I feel, a little bit of a softball, which is, how young do you need to be able to listen and subscribe to this podcast? What age is too young?
Joseph, I don't know that I really want to give you an answer in a number. I think it's more of a mindset. I mean, I will get to a number, and I know we're at the top of the hour, so let me try to be brief. As I said earlier, most people begin to experience midlife seasons somewhere in their 30s. So there's a number for you. But it's whatever. If you're 35 and you're living in your parents' basement, no, you're not in a midlife season yet. You're still in your youth. But if you're, 28 and you're raising two kids, right? Whether you're, married or not, that's a chapter in life that you've begun a midlife season, even though you haven't even hit 30 yet. So, round number around 30-ish, but circumstances really, really drive that. Listen to episode 1 and then you decide from there.
Well, I almost gave you, for me, it's a bit of a softball, a layup, because I actually feel that the younger you are, the more you should listen to this wonderful podcast, because it's almost like Cliff Notes. It's almost like looking into the future. You're going to get the wisdom from people that have come before you, that are going to almost pave the way for you moving forward. And I would say that certainly would be episodes 1 through 18. I would probably skip episode 19 because that's the not so famous Joseph Jaffe. But if you think about it, it's actually it's really perfect for people that have the insight, the humility, maybe the foresight to be able to become a part, to understand what lies ahead. So anyway, that was a little bit of, as I said, a layup for you, my friend. Please subscribe and support Midlife Fulfilled. The podcast, go to a Linktree or you can actually go to linktree.com or linktree.ee /Midlife Fulfilled. You can hang out with Bernie in Discord, connect with him on LinkedIn, follow him on Insta, find him in the club, follow him on the Twitter. And by the way, if that wasn't enough, look out for his new book, which will be written at some point, called Surprise, Surprise, Midlife Fulfilled. Bernie, it's a pleasure. I can't wait for the next interview. Maybe both of us will tag team and be two hosts. We'll double date with Ted Danson and his wife.
There you go.
And who knows? Maybe the two of us will tag team interviewing Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And I'll be back next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.